And yung big question natin this week ay kapareho pa rin ng question natin last week, which is what happens when people from different social class backgrounds meet or interact. No? So hopefully, yung session natin tonight, mas nag-focus siya, yung reading natin for this week, mas nag-focus siya dun sa isang aspeto na binabanggit ni Lacroix last week, no, about the role of stereotyping. Okay? So hopefully we get to clarify that model this evening. Okay. So yung isang consistent theme natin so far, and I'm so glad that at least some of you were able to point this out sa inyong reading memo. No? So yung pagkakabit-kabit ng mga sessions natin ay yung psychological profiles of social classes differ from one another. Okay? So yung social class natin shapes the kind of self that will develop, no? Also shape ang psychological process natin with the way that we think about the world, the emotions, no, that we feel, our behaviors, lalo na, no. So, yun yung ganun ka-powerful yung social class. No? Kaya napakahalaga na we always take that into consideration. So at least ano ba yan? Sorry. So at least for this week, no, eto yung difference na binibigyan nila ng pansin. Okay? That upper class individuals score higher on generalized trust, while lower social class individuals score higher on relational trust. Okay? So what we're trying to say here ay posibleng magkaiba yung trust orientation depende sa kung ano yung social class na kinabibilangan mo. Okay? So yung upper social class individuals, so yung idea ng generalized trust, and I think a lot of you were able to get that no, based on your reading memo, is that there is just an overall belief in human benevolence. Okay? So kaya siya generalized kasi people are basically honest and kind. Okay? And then there's this belief that trust will be likely reciprocated. At pinakita dun sa reading natin na kung ganito yung approach mo sa buhay, if you have high generalized trust, no, it's a lot easier for you to approach people, no? It's a lot easier for you to interact with people, no? And forge particular relationships, no? Yung interesting about this, and which was also pointed out by one of your classmates, and we'll get to that in a bit, is that parang may slight, ano ba, hindi ko alam kung inconsistency yung term, no? Pero bagamat merong high trust yung mga upper class individuals sa mga tao in general, no, yung lower classes for them are largely ignored. So may ganun siyang complication. Parang they trust everybody, but when it comes to lower class individuals, parang hindi siya ganun kasimple or kadali, no, for these upper class individuals. And maybe the stereotype content model can explain that. So pangalawa, yung lower social class individuals, they score high. So ibig sabihin, they trust mostly people they know, no? So there's that security, no, that they mostly trust people who are part of the group. People that they already prior one of you called it a critical kind of trust, no? Such that parang mas pihikan ka dun sa mga tao na pinagkakatiwalaan mo. At isang consequence niyan is that there is a lower generalized trust for people from various social classes. So kung hindi kita in group, no, or wala tayong prior interaction, mas malamang hindi kita pagkakatiwalaan kung isa akong lower social class individual. Okay? So what is clear here, and hopefully what we should, isang important takeaway, okay? So wag muna natin siyang isipin as an interpersonal kind of thing, no? Basta ang idea ay iba yung nasa-shape na trust orientation sa'yo depending on your social class. Okay? So, hiwalay pa dun kapag nagkaroon na ng interaction kasi nagkakaroon na ng person perception factors or forces. Okay? I don't know if you have any questions about these concepts so far. They're relatively straightforward, I feel. Okay. Sige. So what I'd like to ask you now is, what were your thoughts about the middle class? No, what kind of trust are they more likely to show? What do you think? Kasi again, no, hindi na naman masyadong nababanggit yung mga middle class, yung difference nung extremes yung usapan. Kaya yung tatanungin ko, ano kaya yung reason nasa middle class? What do you think? Is there anyone who'd like to try?
Hello, Sir Ton.
Hi, Pao.
Yes po, sir.
Yes.
Personally, I think, coming from a middle class, I believe, feeling ko, sir, towards the lower class, minsan there is this, paano ba? May, ang hirap i-explain. Pero, for me, minsan, merong inggit sa kanila. May inggit akong napipil towards them. Kasi like, before, nakikita ko sa social media, specifically in Facebook, the issue regarding yung ayuda para sa mga mahihirap. I felt
Okay.
like bakit sila meron? Bakit yung middle class wala? I mean, I've seen a lot of posts na parang mga middle class din yung mga nagpo-post, then they are commenting na bakit ganon middle class yung or may mga taxes ganyan, pero bakit wala kaming nakukuhang pakinabang dun sa mga tax na ibinabayad namin ganyan, when in fact malaking pagsubok din sa amin tong pandemic, hindi lang dun sa mga mahihirap. So, sometimes I feel like, oo nga, no, bakit nga ba ganon? So, minsan there is this jealousy towards yung sa kanila, sa mga mahihirap. Pero at the same time, yung level of trust dun sa kanila, parang minsan yung mga ganong comments, yung mga ganong discourse, parang nakakaapekto siya dun sa aking way of thinking na itong mga mahihirap, parang sa totoo lang ha, parang nagkakaroon siya ng boundary sa akin na, oo nga, no, bakit ganun? Parang umaasa lang sila sa gobyerno, ganyan. Tapos nagrereklamo pa sila sa 8,000, ganyan. And I was thinking na, samantalang ako dito bilang middle class, nagtatrabaho pa rin ako kahit na may pandemic, ang hirap-hirap, ganyan. So, I'm not sure kung nasagot ko yung tanong, Sir Ton, but that's how I feel. Thank you po.
Okay, sige. So I think yung importante dun sa sinasabi ni Pao, so kailangan natin siyang ihiwalay, no? Kasi yung nararamdaman natin towards a particular group, so kasi yung nakuha ko sa sinasabi ni Pao ay yung may jealousy, no? So yun ay iba pa siya, no, doon sa idea natin ng trust, no? Basically when we talk about trust, we talk about whether we buy into the intentions, or whether we think the intentions of another person or a particular group are will benefit us, no, or now we will not be harmed by particular intentions, no. So yung sa binabanggit ni Pa, mas feelings siya more than yung ganung perception natin of the intentions of the other, no. So mukhang mahirap din, pero ang nakikita ko ay mukhang baka merong lower trust siguro sa lower class individuals, at least, no. I wonder how it differs kapag upper class yung pinag-uusapan, if we try to kind of look at how we relate, or we want to relate to the upper class individuals. I wonder pa kung iba yung kung ganun din ba, kung may distrust pa rin ba na nararamdaman sa kanila. What do you think?
I can see you. So we are not racing.
Sorry, sino?
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Riza.
Riza.
Steady, Harry.
Pero wala lang. Naisip ko lang if you're in middle class and you're adopting this lens ng labor, the first reading on labor resources, I would think that if you're looking at lower and upper class, you would see them as sort of competition. Therefore, that would kind of affect how you see their intentions. So maybe lower class towards both ends because you can see that lower class needs certain resources. And of course, that notion that upper class has those resources. And medyo, I don't know if it's linked to social mobility because middle class can either go lower or upper. I'm not sure. Pero yun po yung iniisip ko. Baka there's a general mistrust.
Okay. Kasi that's an important point dahil yung isang observation sa middle class individuals that ako, if I see myself as part of the middle class, there is less security sa kanilang status. So may ganong tentativeness about their position. So yung binabanggit ka ni Raisa kasi anytime pwede kang bumaba na wala ka nung security net na meron yung mga upper class. So there's that kind of insecurity going on, and maybe that insecurity can propel distrust toward either groups. No? Kasi isipin mo na yung mga upper class, ang intention nila ay ill, no? Hindi goodwill, dahil they have the tendency to propagate the status quo, no? May distrust din siguro sa lower class kasi ang tingin naman sa kanila, yung intention sa kanila is that they're probably going to take away, and maybe this is where Pao is also coming from, may tendency to take away the resources, yung resources na meron yung mga middle class, no? Anything else that you'd like to add to that? About trust orientations of the middle class? So again, when we talk about trust here, we're talking about the general orientation toward how we approach our relationships, whether we perceive people as having good or bad intentions. Anything else that you'd like to add before I proceed? Actually, walang straightforward na sagot dito kasi wala naman tayong evidence, no? Or at least dun sa reading natin, walang binanggit na evidence. But maybe meron tayong clue doon sa how middle-class individuals tend to behave, no? At sa observations in other research, yung middle-class individuals, they tend to propagate the norm. So ibig sabihin, they are good at what is collectively valued or what is collectively esteemed. So in a particular society or in a particular group, if generalized trust is more esteemed, no, it's something that is highly valued, then there's a probability that middle-class individuals will also adopt that particular orientation. Okay? Kasi ang isang observation lang, yung mga middle class, parang magaling sila to adopt, certain things that work, or certain practices, certain cognitions or thought processes that work in a particular group or context. So, in my mind, kung relational trust yung mas effective, ibig sabihin, it allows them to feel a little bit more secure about their status, then maybe mas i-adopt nila yung ganong klase ng orientation. Okay? Sige. Meron pala dito sa chat box, no? Okay. So sabi ni Fatima, it depends. May lower middle class and upper middle class, okay. Given the profiles of these classes, okay. So I guess ang sinasabi ni Fatima, pwedeng generalized, pwedeng mas relational. So yung sinasabi din dito ni Riza, okay, yeah. Nabanggit na natin yan kanina. Yung kay Nick naman, In terms of the construct, too simplified, okay, yeah. Sige. So, I think at I think yung sinasabi ni Nick is an important point kasi na-bring up din to ng isa ninyong kaklase na, is it really an either or thing that if you have a particular orientation, that's it. No, you do not possess the other orientation. But what we're trying to say here is, and mas nag-align ako dun sa sinasabi ni Nick, na hindi siya one or the other. No, that para siyang trait. No? As an orientation, we possess both, but there is a higher tendency or probability for one orientation over the other. Kasi sinasabi naman ni Villy, I think middle social class tend to be inclined with relational trust. Okay, yeah. So middle class commonly have a tendency to hate the rich and tendency to despise the poor. Okay. So again, yung mga tendency, yung hate and yung contempt, no, are more emotional reactions to the groups that may or may not be associated with the trust orientation that we're talking about. So iba pa siyang proseso. Okay. Sige. So, may isa kayong classmate na sabi niya sa reading memo, I do not agree with the premise of the article, such as general trust and relationism as polar opposites. No? So, I don't know if you felt the same way, no? Na after reading or while reading, parang the claims of the model for you were not very convincing, no? Or you think were not exactly applicable in the Philippine context, no? I don't know. Would you like to expound on this particular impression? And then maybe some of you can also try to say or share what was going through your mind while you were reading the article. Meron din ba kayong ganung klase ng resistance dun sa claims ng model? Feeling nyo ba hindi siya applicable? Feeling nyo ba hindi siya well supported by evidence or data? What do you think?
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Ba ako?
Hi, Nick.
Hello. Yung unang inisip ko nung binasa ko yung reading is medyo inaccept ko din or nakita ko naman yung value ng argument kasi parang medyo makes sense generalized trust kasi yun nga parang mas maraming resources yung like people from like the upper class to afford to trust like people in general and less yung consequences. But I think since bring up ko ng activity, kasi meron din binigay si one of my friends yung actual data set then for the world value survey. And I actually started to doubt a little bit kasi medyo pinaglaruan ko rin yung variables na
nice.
or yung items sir na nasa worksheet din. And then parang nakita ko, hindi ko rin siya masyadong nakita actually sa actual data set. At least yung sa world value survey. And parang yung at least claims or arguments nung sa reading, parang for me I started to doubt it just a little bit. So, yun lang.
Sorry, Nick, can you just expound a little bit? And what particular claims you doubted?
I think, sige, sir.
No, sorry. I mean, is it related to the type of trust orientation associated with either social class? Yun ba?
Yes, sir. Kasi yung nakita ko rin, like the differences between classes, hindi siya masyadong obvious or like if I kind of like visualize the data in my head na hindi ko rin napansin like any not like the statistical kind of significant difference pero like yung observational lang na parang bakit pa yung claims dito medyo iba din nagpakita sa actual data. Kaya yung in terms of like the differences that must ascribe to the upper class yung generalized trust and then yung relationism to the lower class. Yun yung medyo yung relationship na yun. Medyo I wasn't sure about that then.
Okay, sige. Thank you so much, Nick. Maybe we can get to that some more a little bit when we talk about the results, no? And there are some tentative explanations about why that could be the case, but I'd also like to hear your thoughts about that later. Anything else that you'd like to raise with this question?
Hi, sir.
Hi, Anime.
When I was reading the article, parang I thought it was pretty straightforward and easy to understand at first. Yun nga yung sinabi natin na the upper class, higher generalized trust, lower class. Yan. Pero parang nung nire-relate ko na siya in my personal experiences, in my interactions, parang hindi ko mahanapan ng example. So parang nag-doubt tuloy ako if naintindihan ko ba yung article or am I missing something? Kasi parang in my interactions naman, I don't look at the person and think, do I trust you? Do I think you're competent? And then that's when, alam mo, sir, parang I don't know if I didn't understand it lang. Pero yun nga sabi mo kanina, if wala pa munang interaction, in general, do people have generalized trust or relational trust? Parang I agree with my classmate who said this na parang those aren't really polar opposites, pero it may also depend on the situation of the person, yung context, yun.
Thank you so much for sharing, Anime. Yeah, so I think that is the important point. So actually, ito yung isa sa mga gusto kong exercises and some things that I do in your memos. No, when you kind of try to situate it in the Philippine context and actually kahit sa inyong personal experiences, kasi then we're able to test the boundaries of the model, no, and consistent. Marami sa inyo sa memos kahit sa umpisa pa tinatanong na palagi dun sa part na what do you like to learn more? You like to learn more about how it works in the Philippines, no? Why am I saying that? So yun. So I gusto lang i-point out na importante na when we read, because a lot of this is in the context of America, na sinusubukan natin siyang i-test in our minds, no, kapag in-apply dito sa Philippines, which is a good exercise because that's one of the requirements that you have to do when you start presenting your analysis of the different models, no. So and then what is it? Ayun. So I also wanted to emphasize then that yun nga hindi siya it might have come across na orthogonal sila or hindi sila related, yung relational trust and generalized trust, no. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's also good to say that they're parang in the na polar opposite sila, di ba? Na kasi baka nga as orientations independent sila, pero pwede mo silang pwedeng meron ka both, no, that you can show relational and generalized trust. It's just that seeing dito sa slide na to na they just tend to on a particular kind of trust, no, and we're not really saying that if you score higher on one, you don't possess the other kind of trust orientation already. Okay. Sige, anything else that you'd like to add about this question? About general impressions about the psychological profiles? Okay. But hopefully, ang nakikita natin dito ay more or less consistent siya. Yung naninik kanina, na more or less yung theme na, yung social class shapes who we are, it's kind of consistent itong sinasabi about trust orientation doon sa binabak Krauss about yung ating mga solipsistic tendencies, no? That you tend to focus nga on how the world is more controllable, and because of that, no, you can trust people more easily compared to lower class individuals.
Sir,
Okay. Yes.
question lang. So for the upper social
Yes,
class,
please.
for example, they are hypothesized to have a higher generalized trust, at least in the context of America or in the West. However, pwede namang magkaroon din sila ng generalized trust and relational trust at the same time. But I have difficulty imagining a generalized trust with lower social class or lower social income class. If I situate myself, for example, to myself or to what I observed, na parang mas relational trust yung nakikita ko sa nila as a lower class, and sa upper class naman is both generalized trust and relationism. I think, for example, the idea of the padrino system in the country in which mas pinapaboran mo or mas trusting ka basically with who you know, are sometimes identified with the upper class, which is relationism, but also they are characterized, at least in the studies of the West, as having more generalized trust.
Right. So, sorry, Vinny, let me just clarify. The question is, it's not really a question, but more of a comment questioning the applicability model, tama ba?
Yes, sir.
Kung bakit posibleng hindi, okay, na pwedeng hindi mag-work yung, or na it's less nating makita or ma-observe yung generalized trust for lower class individuals in the Philippines.
And mas nakikita natin yung upper
Okay.
social class generalized trust and relationism at the same time, not as a polar opposite. So in support na
Right.
din dito sa statement na to.
Right. So, actually, maganda nga yung point na yan kasi I think si Pao din ata yung nagtanong dun sa reading memo niya about ano ba itong, what secret handshake are we talking about here? Ano bang ibig sabihin nung title in relation to trust, no? And I think what we're seeing here is bagamat, or at least yung ina-argue dun sa reading natin, bagamat yung higher social class tend to trust others, in general, exclusive pa rin yung club, quote unquote, no, doon sa mga upper social class individuals. Kumbaga, they will extend that trust to everybody, but the benefits incurred dun sa trust na yun, limitado pa rin siya dun sa people that they know. I don't know if that makes sense. No? So, mamaya subukan natin himayin, ano ba yung kinalaman yan sa inequality? No? How do the different types of trust influence maintaining inequality? Pero what we're trying to say here, or at least what the reading is trying to say is, magkaiba yung profiles. So, ibig sabihin, magkaiba yung approach nila sa buhay, no? Pero, mukhang mas relationism pa rin yung namamayani, no? Kung kaya, may inequality pa din. That the upper class tend to relate only with the upper class, no? And thus, sila pa rin yung nakikinabang, no? Doon sa resources at their disposal. I hope that was clear kahit papaano. Okay. So with that, having said that, no, maybe we can just talk about this question a bit. Malinaw ba sa inyo ano yung role ng different types of trust in maintaining inequality? And then later on, may nagtanong din kasi sa inyo dito, do you think the middle class individuals trust their own? Pero kasi yung pinag-usapan natin ngayon ay why social inequality persists, no? So ang titingnan natin ditong posibleng role ay yung role ng trust orientation. So nakikita nyo ba kung papaano yung different types of trust can maintain inequality? And can you kind of articulate how you see the relationship between trust and inequality? What do you think? Bakit importante para kina Fisk yung usapin ng trust? Okay. So sabi ni Jessa, yung trust affects permeability of boundaries and intermobility of members. No? So Jessa, correct me if I'm wrong, no? Ang intindi ko dito ay kung totoo that mas generalize yung trust mo, dapat mas welcoming ka sa mga tao from different groups, no? And then therefore, it should allow you to welcome other people at maka-affect yun sa mobility. Tama ba yan,
Um,
Jessa?
yes, sorry, medyo mahina po yung internet connection ko. So, yes, that was yung iniisip ko po siya in terms of inequality is that yun nga, trust. Kasi if we only limit the people we trust with, ito lang po yung makakahalubilo natin. And then, we won't let any other social groups come in. Same with in-group, out-group, like yung in-group, out-group thing po, diba? So, if ito na yung nakakahalubilo natin, mas nagso-solidify po yung wall or yung boundary, and pag mas makapal yung wall and boundary, mas malayo yung mas mahirap pasukin siya ng ibang social class. At the same time, mas lumalaki po yung gap between the social classes. Yun yung naisip ko in terms of inequality and the relationship to trust po.
Okay, thank you. So, meron talaga siyang impact dun sa mga tao na nakakasama natin. And if we keep on running around the same circle, so there's less opportunity for us to really interact with other social groups. And therefore, madidisadvantage talaga yung nasa lower social class kasi wala sila nung benefit nung social network, or social capital na meron yung mga relatively upper social class individuals. Sinasabi naman the trust facilitate cross class. Yeah, okay. I do agree no na isang suggestion talaga, isang suggestion na nakikita ko nga rin dito sa sinasabi nila Fisk ay people have to work together. If we want to reduce inequality, we have to start trusting each other so that we get to interact with each other. And then therefore, kung hindi mo iniisip na ill intentions yung sa isang grupo, you're more willing to share, halimbawa the resources, to share what you know, and hindi ma-magnify yung differences between the two of you. Okay? Yeah, so atin din yung binabanggit ni Jenalyn, yung idea ng how trust affects how we share our resources, no? Yung I think yung isang importante about trust is that in general it influences approach and avoidance tendencies, no? If you trust people in general, mataas yung probability na you will approach different kinds of people. Okay? Pag relational yung trust mo, tendency mo to avoid groups of people. No? So, yun yung isang relationship niya. No? Approach avoidance, and then may impact nga yun doon sa kanino tayo mag-share ng resources. At yung resources, pwedeng hindi nga lang kasi siya yung material eh. Pwedeng yung knowledge, cultural resources, no? How we operate in particular contexts, no, etc. Yeah, so kasi kung iisipin mo halimbawa, medyo off topic, pero yung news about bakit ba importante na inaalam ng Pulse Asia whether people trust their government officials, no? Or bakit ba big deal na sobrang taas ng trust rating sa halimbawa ni Duterte? No? So, importante yun sa atin kasi it affects the way that we assess, no? Yung intentions nila towards atin. Kasi kung pinagkakatiwalaan mo yung isang tao, yung pangulo mo, halimbawa, para sa'yo, mabuti lang yung intention niya para sa ating lahat. So, lesser yung tendency. So, mas masusunod ka sa kanya, mas papayag ka sa kanya, sa mga gusto niya mangyari, no? Lesser mag-a-class or maging critical siguro doon sa mga action na ginagawa with you. Yeah. So, sabi ni Villy, generalized trust impacts or access to weak ties too. Okay. So, sorry, Villy. Ang sinasabi ba ng research is that because you trust people more, you have more access to all types of opportunities and all types of relations.
Yes, sir. Basically, sinasabi naman ng strength of weak ties ni Granovetter is at kung i-connect natin siya sa generalized trust, if you are more trusting, you are more open to possibilities, you are more open to people. So, you are strengthening your acquaintances, number of acquaintances, meaning you're also opening up your opportunities to meet other people, and these other people opens up opportunities for you. So, pwedeng ganun natin siya tingnan.
Right. Okay. So thank you so much. So hopefully with these responses, mas nakikita natin kung bakit importante yung role ng trust, no? Sa pag-reduce or pag-maintain or pag-propagate ng inequality. So yung tinatanong ni Nick dito, so baka daw hindi okay yung generalized trust kung hindi kasama yung lower class. So again, dito nga pumapasok yung iba yung orientation. So may orientation na nasa-shape. Okay? Pero mukhang ang sinasabi ng article na override yung trust probably ng other forces or other factors when we start interacting with people from different groups. Okay? Yeah, okay. At yun din yung point ni Adi. So, bakit kung generalized trust, bakit may na-exclude pa din? No, bakit may secret handshake pa rin nagaganap? Ibig sabihin, bakit yung mga elite, yung mga upper class, sila pa lang din yung nagtitiwala sa isa't isa at nag-share ng resources sa isa't isa, no? At precisely, yun nga yung nilagay ni Adi sa chat, kasi yung isang theme din na nakukuha natin hopefully ay class-based stereotypes organize cross-class encounters. So kahit na mukhang, ito yung interpretation ko dun sa reading, kahit na generalized yung trust orientation mo, pag nagsimula ng mag-interact yung mga tao, may iba nang nag-ooperate. At yung stereotypes nga na nag-ooperate, posible na na-influensyahan pa rin niya how we relate with others. Okay? So dyan pumapasok yung stereotype content model, no? So, does anyone like to try to make sense of the stereotype model? What does it say about person perception? So, let's try to look at this particular graph, no? So, may nilagay lang ako ditong numbers 1 and 2. So, would anyone like to walk us through? So, particularly, number 1, ano yung dimensions na binabanggit, yung warmth at competence? Tapos, pangalawa, ano yung groupings na nakikita natin on our screen? So how did you understand or how did you make sense of the stereotype content? Kumbaga, ano yung main arguments of the model na kuha ninyo from the reading? Para makita natin yung stereotypes sa person perception. May pang gusto mag-try? So, unahin mo, bakit ba stereotype content? Yung tawag sa model. Ano yung stereotypes? Yung stereotype nila? Sige. So, baka hiya kayo na i-share about this model. So let me just walk you through this a bit. No? So yung actually na-extend na tong stereotype model, meron na rin sila tinatawag na bias model o yung behaviors from intergroup affect and stereotypes model. So to discuss this a bit at tignan natin ano yung impact niya sa intergroup or cross-class relations. Okay. So basically, ang sabi niyan, when we perceive the traits of people, okay, so halimbawa, gagawa tayo ng judgment sa isang tao. So itong tao ko ba na to ay mapagkakatiwalaan ko? No? O yung tao ba na to, tingin ko ba ay meron siyang kakayahan to enact their good or bad intentions? No? So ito yung sinasabi ng model. Kaya sa stereotype content, kasi yung kung i-group mo daw yung mga stereotypes, no, na napaperceive natin sa ibang mga tao, pwede silang i-group sa dimensions ng warmth and competence. So, yung warmth and competence dito are considered as traits, okay? So, ugali at paraan ng pagkilos sa mga tao. So, pag nagkikipag-interact tayo sa mga tao, napaperceive natin kung sila ba ay warm or competent. Okay? Pero yung isang tanong doon, saan galing yung ganong perception? Kasi if you think about it, yung perception na yun, judgment sila, di ba? At yung judgments are usually based on something. Kumbaga meron tayong cues, meron tayong information na ginagamit para mag-end up tayo with our perception. Ay, oo nga, warm siya. Ay, oo nga, ano siya, competent siya. No? So yung isang hypothesis nila, yung competence, ang isang antecedent niya. So they call these two antecedents, no, of stereotype perceptions. Yung tinatawag nila na structural relational features, no, of the interaction. So usually, yung subjective social class rank ng isang tao, whether higher or lower class ka, it can predict whether you feel that the person is competent or not. No? So ano ba yung mga halimbawa ng mga traits that are considered as competent, no? So yung bahagi ng competence yung intelligence, no? Efficiency, creativity, perceived ability, perceived skills, no? So itong tao ba na to ay magaling o hindi? Okay? Tapos yung warmth naman, apparently ang basis ng warmth perception, so yung warmth traits include trustworthiness, friendliness, etc. No? Ay doon sa intentions, perceived intentions ng isang tao. So pag na-perceive mo yung isang tao na competitor, or na-perceive mo siya na hindi maganda yung intention niya sa'yo, mababa yung warmth traits na ina-associate mo sa kanya. As opposed sa pag nakita mo na kakampi mo siya, ano, or maganda yung intentions niya sa'yo. Okay? Bakit yun importante? Bakit importante itong stereotype content ng warmth and competence? Because basically, they affect yung ating liking and respect sa isang tao o sa grupo ng mga tao. Okay? So if you think that the other person is warm, mataas yung probability na you will like that person. And therefore, you will approach that person. So yung trustworthiness, medyo dito siya nakaangkla. Okay? So, kahit na mataas yung trust mo sa mga tao, pero pag in your mind, no, pwedeng, generally mataas yung trust mo sa mga tao, pero may mga tao ka na tingin mo, hindi mo mapagkakatiwalaan kasi yung intentions sila ay ill, no? So, bababa yung liking mo sa kanila, bababa rin yung trustworthiness ratings mo sa kanila. Does that make sense? So, yung competence naman, it affects whether we're going to respect someone or not. Okay? So, people that we perceive to be competent are respected. So, warmth affects liking, competence affects respect. Okay? Sige, babalikan natin itong model a bit. So, i-walk through ko lang kayo dun sa argument. So, yung warmth and competence, sila yung universal dimensions of social cognition, such that when we perceive others, yung traits that we ascribe to them can fall under warmth and competence. Okay? So, again, yung warmth, ito yung they capture traits related to perceived intent, including friendliness, helpfulness, sincerity, trustworthiness, and morality. Pero pag competence yan, so these are traits related to ability, intelligence, skill, creativity, and efficacy. Okay? Sige. So, yung isang binabanggit din nila, kaya importante kaya pumapasok yung usapin ng trust. At siya kung bakit naging importante yung usapin ng warmth. Kasi merong argument na yung warmth is judged before competence. Ito yung tinatawag nila na primacy of warmth. Okay? Una mo muna nakikita kung good or bad yung intention niya, then therefore may effect yun kung lalapitan o lalayuan mo yung isang tao. Okay? So it also turns out that in some of the research abroad, yung warmth judgments, they carry more weight in particular reactions. Okay? So yan yung isang importante na pinag-uusapan. Yung isa rin na mahalagang ma-realize natin dito sa groupings na to. So apparently, when we judge people based on warmth and competence, nagugrupo-grupo sila. Okay? So halimbawa, itong nasa quadrant na to, yung mga elderly, retarded, and disabled, high warmth, pero low competence. So you like them, but you don't respect them as much. Okay? So, yung pinakamababa or negative yung ating impressions ay yung nasa quadrant na to, yung poor, welfare recipients, feminists, etc. So, mababa na yung warmth, mababa pa yung competence. So, you don't like them and you don't respect them. Okay? Tapos dito sa part na to, ito yung sinasabi nila ng mga reference groups, no? Yung mga tao that generally we like and respect, which include the middle class. No? So yung middle class, siya yung, kaya feeling ko din, hindi masyadong dinidiscuss yung middle class kasi siya yung reference group mo where you compare the upper and the lower class individuals. And then, yung rich, kung makikita ninyo, mataas yung competence nila, pero they're perceived as cold. So you respect them, but you don't necessarily like them. Okay? So bakit yan importante para sa stereotype content model? Importante yan kasi kung ano kung nasan sila dito sa quadrant, okay? Kung ano yung rating mo sa competence and warmth nila, meron niyang impact doon sa emotions na nararamdaman mo toward them. Okay? So, dito pumapasok yung hindi lang isa yung mukha ng prejudice. Kasi yung prejudice, yung negative reaction mo towards a particular group or group member. No? Dati kasi, yung conceptualization sa prejudice, iisang klase lang, antipathy. Sabihin, parang hate mo lang everybody. No? Pero ninunuance to ng stereotype content model na sinasabi nila, there are ambivalent stereotypes, meaning high on one dimension but low on one dimension. So you like them but you don't respect them, or you respect them but you don't like them. So depende on how you perceive a group or a person, it also has an influence on the type of prejudice that you feel. No? It can be envy, it can be contempt, it can be pity. So interesting dito kasi kahit pity yung nararamdaman mo, kinakount siya na prejudice. No? It's not something that will benefit a particular group. Okay? And then, so importante din dito yung extension nila, how you feel will impact whether you'll help or harm a particular group. No? So kahit na wag na lang muna natin tignan yung differences nung active or passive. Basta yung idea dito ay may impact daw siya, how you feel toward a group, ay may impact dun sa whether you'll help them or you'll harm them. Pero crucial dito yung stereotype content. How you perceive a group or a person will impact how you feel about them and consequently how you will behave toward them. Okay? So ito yung sinasabi niya. Yung mga tao na you like but don't respect, you pity. Yung mga tao na you don't like and don't respect, you feel contempt or hate. No? Yung mga tao that you respect but don't necessarily like, you feel envy. At yung mga tao that you like and respect, you admire. Okay? Tapos ito yung klase ng mga behaviors na nangyayari. Okay? So kapag kinakaawaan mo sila, posible na ang isang kilos na nagagawa mo sa kanila ay passive harm. Ibig sabihin, you don't intentionally harm them, but also, you don't proactively help them. Kaya delikado rin yung PT. No? Yung contempt, kung makita nyo dito, pag contempt yung naramdaman mo, hate, harm yung nagiging kilos mo sa kanila. Okay? And then envy naman, merong pwedeng active harm kang gagawin if you envy particular people or groups. Okay? Meron ba kayong question about that? So again, if we're going to just put that into words, no, yung nabanggit ko na kanina, yung prejudice or yung feelings mo, negative feelings mo toward the other, is not just simple hate. Mas nuanced siya depending on how you perceive them. No? And then, consequently, distinct types of discrimination result from each warmth by competence combination. I understand that's a lot to take in, no? But do you have any questions at this point? Sorry, may question si Adi na Americans. Yeah, oh. American siya kasi dito sa graph na to, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, ang data nila dito ay cross-cultural. No? So, for some reason, in their data, at least back in the day, tagal na to, 2006 pa tong study na to. Americans yung reference group na highly liked and respected. Baka ngayon hindi na. Any questions about the model? About the stereotype content model that you'd like to raise? That you'd like to clarify? So siguro ito yung interesting dito, no? Yung binabanggit nga kanina na yung upper class, generalized trust sila. So supposedly, dapat they tend to like everybody, no? Pero kasi yung generalized trust, wala rin siyang sinasabi about perceptions of competence. So kahit na generally you like everybody, no? Pwedeng yung respect, hindi mo naman nire-respeto lahat. At may consequence yun sa feelings natin at behaviors natin toward them. Question so far?
Sir, question.
Yes, Anime.
So yung pinag-uusapan natin on generalized and relational trust, pumapasok po dito sa quadrant sa warmth?
Na warmth na dimension?
Apo.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So itong warmth na to, sorry na-cut pala siya. Kasama dyan yung perceptions of trustworthy. Sorry, hindi. Sorry, I might have confused you. Yung general trust at relational trust, wala pa siya dito sa model na to. Kasi yun ay psychological profiles or trust orientations that are argued to be shaped by class. Okay? So pag pumasok tong model na to, pumasok siya kasi nag-i-interact na yung mga tao. So ngayon, yung warmth is a perception of trustworthiness. Does that make sense? Iba yung I am generally trusting sa I don't think this person is trustworthy. So yung I don't think this person is trustworthy is usapin siya ng low warmth.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, sir.
Yes, Nick.
Kind of like yung question lang is, what does it mean pala, like when they say that the middle class was used as a reference point lang? What do they mean that?
Yeah, what they meant to say was dun sa data na nakukuha nila consistently pag middle kasi paano ba to actually sobrang tedious nitong research na to kasi ang gagawin nila meron silang naglilista yung researchers naglilista sila ng maraming types of groups, no? Tas i-rate ng participant whether high competence or high warmth basically, no? So nakita nila consistently across groups and across participants, yung middle class ay rated to be high warmth and high competence. So yun yung para sa kanila, dun sa researchers, ang conceptualization nila sa grupo na to, reference kasi high on both, basically. Kaya siya reference. Hindi ambivalent yung ano mo sa kanila. Hindi ambivalent yung perceptions mo sa kanila. So parang ang reference nila ay good on both. Kasi pwede mo naman i-argue, bakit hindi mo gawing reference yung negative on both? Diba? Pero sa kanila, yung conceptualization nila, ang reference nila palagi, yung high on both warmth and competence. Okay. So may tanong si Janeline, di po kayo nakaka-apekto yung subjective social class ng participants sa magiging perception about other social classes? This is an excellent question, which I also tried to look in. Actually, dun sa thesis ko, isa to sa mga questions that I asked. Um, and sa ibang research lumalabas din na, I cannot be conclusive about this, okay? But you are onto something, Jenelyn. Some evidence show that kung lower social class ako, meron akong tendency to perceive other people in a particular manner. Pero hindi kasi siya ganun kasimple eh. Kasi very powerful talaga yung role ng characteristics of the other, if that makes sense. So kahit na meron akong particular, lower social class ako, meron akong particular tendencies, no? At I think yun din yung pinapoint nitong reading na to eh. May tendency ako to be more relationally trusting, no? Or may tendency ako to perceive other people as negative, no? Pero kapag nag-interact na tayo, yung taglay nung interaction partner ko na characteristics, nagkakaroon na siya ng influence sa perception ko sa kanila. So kahit na may tendency ako to act or perceive things in a particular way, nag-i-interact din yung characteristics ng interaction partner ko. I don't know, Jenelyn, if I answered your question, but that's, yeah.
Ang pagkakagets ko lang, sir, is parang mas more on the interaction siya.
Parang na-override yung tendencies ko sa context kung saan ako nag-operate. I think that is the general principle, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Parang may bit akong traits, kunwari, or may bit akong tendencies, psychological profiles, but it will also, the way I will react will also depend on sino yung ka-interact ko. Kasi kahit na distrustful ako sa mga tao, pero yung kausap ko sobrang palangiti, alam mo yun, parang walang masamang tinapay, parang angel locsin baga. Di ako nagtitiwala sa mga tao. Pero based on, how I perceive angel locsin sa social media at, how she presents herself in public, parang ang hirap niyang hindi i-like. Parang kahit na distrusting ako in general, in that context na imi-meet ko siya, pwedeng high warmth yung tingin ko sa kanya.
Okay, sir. Gets. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. But also, Jelen, I must say, medyo biased din yung aking framing of the world. Kasi social psych yung area ko. So yung tingin ko sa mundo is that napakalaki nung may baon ako as a person. So may traits ako, may profiles ako. Pero hindi lang yun yung sole determinant of outcomes in interactions. Merong malaki yung force na influence na malaki yung impluwensya ng context, interaction partner, etc. Yun. Any other questions about the stereotype content model? So again, what are we trying to emphasize here? Na dalawa yung pinupunto ng article nila Fisk. Yung isa, yung social class mo can shape your psychological profile, particularly the trust that yung trust orientation mo. At yung type ng trust orientation na meron ka, mukhang may impluensya na yun sa social inequality. Okay? Yung second part of their article, pinag-interact na nila yung mga tao. So, nung pinag-interact na nila yung mga tao, ang argument nila, malaki na ngayon yung impluensya ng perception mo of your interaction partner sa kung paano ka mag-react sa kanya. Or malaki na yung perception mo of your interaction partner sa outcomes of your interaction. Okay. Do you have any questions? Sige. Would you like to take a quick break or shall we just proceed? So kasi at this point, we will be talking about the results dun sa inyong study guide. So whether we think that the model is convincing or what do we feel about the model in general and whether it helps us understand social inequality. Okay, quick break. Sige, tingnan natin if 5 minutes is enough. No, kung hindi, sige, we can extend a little bit sa 10. Pero I'll give you a 5-minute break. Okay? I'll see you shortly. Okay, sige. Baka pwede na tayo mag-start ulit. Okay. Sige, I hope you're back. So let's just quickly talk about kasi tulad ninyo, siyempre yung isang curiosity ko din ay whether these models do relate or apply in the Philippine context, no? So, and good thing is that there are data available, no, that we can sort of play with, and we can see whether the some of the hypotheses hold, no. So I'm showing you now. I don't know if you can see this on your screen, but I'm showing you the results of just simple cross tabulation that I did. So basically, ang idea dito ay tinitignan lang yung frequency noong mga social class individuals. Titignan yung responses ng members of a particular social class dun sa item na whether they trust others in general or not. Okay? So, cross-tabs siya kasi yung generalized trust item ay either or. No? So, two options lang siya. Hindi siya Likert scale. No? Tapos yung different social classes naman, self-identified na social class sila. Okay? Is there anyone who would like to try and tell us a bit about what they see on the screen or what the results say? How did you make sense of the results? How did you understand this? What
Sir,
does it say? Yeah, Billy.
Briefly siguro, if we are using the theory or the model, we can say that for lower social class and working class, it does actually fit the idea that they have lower generalized trust as evidence to the high belief that people need to be careful when it comes to trusting. However, also the upper middle class and the upper class also have the same orientation, kumbaga. And so a conclusion might be that in the Philippines, we are generally, if this is Philippine data, I think so, we have generally a low level of generalized trust, 5.4 lang siya, or the belief that people can be trusted, while 94.6% naman believe that there's a need to be careful.
Okay, thanks, Billy. Anything else you'd like to add based on this crosstabs? So, isang pwedeng tignan natin dito ay yung consistency ng responses ng mga participants. Ay, sorry. Adi, you want to say something? Sorry, meron bang okay. Hello? Can you... Okay. Can I just proceed? Okay. So... yeah? Okay. So, what we're seeing here is mukhang mas madami from each of the social class groupings yung nagsasabi that we need to be very careful. And mas kaunti, no? Kung ikukumpara natin yung nagsabi na most people can be trusted. Okay, which I found interesting actually, no? So if we're going to reflect on that result, so do the results support the hypothesis? So parang ang sinasabi ni Vili, parang hindi, no? Anything else that struck you or surprised you about the results, or were they expected? What do you think? So when you're going to try to reflect on these results, no, parang how do you appreciate the result? Was it something surprising? Okay, sabi ni Adi may problema. Okay, sorry. Yung main thoughts are Filipinos generally mistrusting. So that is one question. Upper class had lowest general trust? Okay. So dun sa point number 2, medyo mahirap siya i-compare in that manner kasi ano to parang they tried to be... So una, isang importanteng ma-appreciate natin about this data is that it was not meant to be a study on trust and social class. Okay? So it was they tried to get a representative sample of adults, adults who who can vote, basically, okay? So therefore, mas kaunti yung participants na sumagot dito, no? So hindi ko alam kung pwede natin siya ma-appreciate na in terms of like proportion, mas kaunti talaga. Pero kasi kung titignan niyo yung total, mas kaunti yung participants from the upper class. No? Mas madami talaga dun sa dun sa middle class na groups. No? So, yeah. So, ang hirap niya talagang i-compare in that manner kasi yung ideal scenario would be you'd get as many participants from each group para mas maganda yung comparison natin. Could also have to do with the wording of I'm not sure if you're talking about the question here, Adi, yeah, but possibly, oo. Okay, so thank you so much, Nick. The question and choices, okay, yeah. Possibly, pero interesting. So, thank you, Nick, for doing that kasi ako hindi na ako nag-go as far as checking the patterns in other countries, but it's interesting kung mas kita nga yung differences sa kanila. Nick, anong mga countries kaya tong chinek mo? Yeah, okay, yes, please do share. Kahit sa email or kahit sa inyong chat group. Yeah. What countries are these na mas kitang differences? And yung differences ba are consistent with the propositions of the model? Nick, would you like to share a bit? Okay. Sige. So, US and Germany. Sige, okay, sige, never mind. So, at least sa US and Germany consistent. So, sa kanila, ganito, pero sa atin, mukhang iba. Okay? So, at least yun yung pwede natin masabi so far. So, ang isang tanong ay, are these results enough for us to conclude anything about the association between social class and generalized trust? Is this enough for us to say na iba talaga sa atin? That Filipinos might be a little bit more distrusting? Are these results enough? What do you think? Sige, Nick, mag-unmute ka lang anytime if you feel like sharing. No pressure, it's okay. But if we're going to reflect on the third question, what do you think? Is it conclusive?
Sir, I think no.
Okay, really, yeah. Why do you think so?
First one, as you have said, it's not designed for the purpose of actually measuring the association between social class and generalized trust. Second, we actually don't know what they are controlling here, or there might be participation bias on who answered the test. It might not be representative of the population, and pero ang main point ko po siguro is that the study was not actually designed to measure the association nga between social class and generalized trust, and it might be difficult for us to conclude on these results, or to conclude based on these results only.
Okay. Thank you so much, Villy. So si Fatima din, might be difficult to conclude anything precisely kasi descriptive pa siya at this point. So parang it hints at particular associations or it hints at particular conclusions, no? But nothing definitive at this point. Okay? Sige, anything else you'd like to add before we proceed to the next?
Hello?
Hi, Adi. Okay.
Hey.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Naisip ko rin po, parang if we are going to really conduct a study to measure this particular variable, parang kailangan din pong ayusin yung wording. Kasi tinignan ko, dalawa po kasi yung choices, and yung choice to imply lower generalized trust is parang ano lang, kailangan mag-ingat sa pakikitungo sa mga tao. Parang inisip ko po, parang pwede naman, it's generally an agreeable statement that you, in general, would have to be careful in dealing with other people. It's not necessarily an opposite of the other choice, which is halos lahat ng mga tao ay mapagkakatiwalaan. So parang iniisip ko rin po kung na polarized ba or na measure ba ng maayos yung trusting or not trusting na parts po.
Okay. Thanks for that, Adi. That's a good point, no, about whether these items are uh, parang bipolar, no, or polar opposites of each other. Kasi nga baka one is measuring something else and the other is measuring another thing. Okay, yeah. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Actually, sinare ko siya sa group chat
Okay,
lang.
Nick. Thank you.
Ay,
Di-
wait. Ay, hindi mo makikita, hindi mo makikita. Baka, wait, sige. I can share.
You want to
Or,
share a screen?
sige, sure. I'll
Sige.
share the group chat if you guys are okay. Makita yung chat. Sige, Chrome tab. Tapos, Messenger. Hi, sir.
Okay.
Chat. So, ito yung sa United States. Like, ginawa ko lang siya as like, in terms of proportion,
Mm-hmm.
medyo pansin din sa Philippines yung sa upper class kasi, onti lang din kasi yung, keep in mind, onti lang din kasi yung participants. So, sa
Right.
United States, ganito yung itsura niya. So, ito yung lower class up to upper class. Germany.
Yung orange, tama ba? Sorry, medyo colorblind ako. Yung orange ba yun? Orange and green? Orange and yellow?
Yung orange, it means that most people can be trusted.
Okay, okay.
And the yellow is that they need to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So,
ito sa
okay, sorry, go Nick.
US, and if I'm not mistaken, this is Germany. This would be China. This would be Japan. And this is Philippines. Kaya medyo may obvious difference in comparison to other countries.
Right, right. Sorry, can you please go back to Japan? I think there's a slide before that. Okay. Sige. Okay, thank you. Thanks for doing that. Okay, so ito yung interesting, I think, when we start comparing, then we see the possibility of particular contexts that are affecting our responses. No? Sorry, Nick, anything else you'd like to add about this? Or ano yung mga insights mo when you were kind of, playing with the data?
Well, in terms of, I guess, yung sinabi sa reading na mas mataas yung generalized trust on upper class, I feel like, well, based on itong descriptive data lang naman, na medyo mas malaki nga in proportion pag sa upper classes. Pero hindi ko siya na-check agad kasi parang yung tinignan ko lang talaga is yung sa Philippines, and I was wondering lang din, baka maybe yung hypothesis at least na may generalized trust more upper class, baka naman makita sa ibang countries.
Okay.
So, yun din naman.
Tapos
sorry.
you use the World Value Survey, diba?
Yes, sir. Yung 2019 lang.
Right. So, well, dun sa question ni Adi, the questions were, hindi ko kasi sure kung strictly Filipino yung ginamit nila eh. So, in that sense, hindi siya, sa US, definitely, ito yung ginamit nila. Most people can be trusted and we need to be very careful. Tapos ito yung ginamit sa Philippines. Kung tama yung intindi ko sa dataset.
I think, like, sir, yung pinakita mo rin sa worksheet, yun mismo talaga yung just for the Philippines. And I think, like, for every country, parang meron nga rin silang sariling translated version. So it wouldn't actually be the same nga yung pagka-wording sa Philippines and for like, for Japan or I guess like in other countries like sa Brazil. So
Right.
maybe that could be one thing to look at then. Well, I think like they try to maybe like standardize it naman siguro. So, pero iba nga yung questionnaires din. Since,
Right.
Yeah.
Pero I think yun yung interesting, no? Kasi sa US, parang yung descriptive analysis would say, kind of relates to the reading. Pero sa Philippines, parang iba. No, ang ganda ng itsura ng graph na parang, yun nga, are we generally distrustful? Do we think we should be careful all the time? No? And that's something that we can explore or look into in the future. What is going on here? What does that say about us, actually? Sige, so let's move on to the next one. So kung kung medyo inconsistent yung sa Philippines sa generalized trust, baka sa relational trust, no, mas kumabit, no, yung karanasan natin sa sinasabi sa reading. So this is an interesting, they didn't call it relational trust, but I kind of used it as a proxy kasi how much you trust people from these various groups. And a lot of these groups are our in-groups. Diba? So may kita natin dito yung kung kanino tayo ka-close, kumbaga. No? So ang lumalabas dito, what does the data say? So kapag correlation siya, ano yung importanteng tignan sa results? So kapag correlation, we need to look into
the Pearson R.
So titignan natin yung R. So ibig sabihin nun, it tells us about the magnitude of the relationship. Okay? Tapos yung isang indicator, yung nabanggit ni Mika ay yung at nabanggit din ni Adi yung possibly yung significance, kasi yung significance, although hindi conclusive, will sort of give us an idea regarding whether an association exists or not. Okay? At least based on the data set. And then we also need to look into what, ano pa? May isa pa. So yung magnitude at saka yung
direction.
Okay, correct. Yung direction of the relationship. Whether as one goes up, the other goes up also, and as one goes down, the other goes down. Okay. So ano yung nakita ninyo dito sa data set? May association ba yung subjective income, yung ladder, sa trust ratings?
Sir, weak associations po lahat.
Weak association. Tapos yung iba pa nga, hindi sila quote-unquote significant, diba?
Yes,
so yung tanging significant, ang sinasabi niya, dahil negative yung relationship, as you move up the ladder, you tend to trust your family more. One kasi ay, kung titignan natin yung questionnaire, one ay lubos na nagtitiwala. So lower score means you're more trusting. Okay? So as you move up the ladder, you trust your family more. The problem is, the magnitude is very small. Ang liit, 0.08. Diba? So parang kahit na, at maaari na nag-positive siya, or nagkaroon hindi na positive, nag-significant siya dahil malaking sample size. Yun yung thing about correlation, kasi as you increase your sample, mas tumataas yung probability na magkakaroon ng quote-unquote significance dun sa testing mo. Okay? So, but if we're going to look at this data set, what we're seeing here is parang walang association yung ladder dun sa relational trust items. Okay? So, parang wala rin siya necessarily sinasabi about whether people are more trusting of their in-groups. Okay? Na possibly consistent. Actually, interesting dito for me kasi does that also imply that even if it's your family, in general, no, you need to still be careful about your family. No? Who hurt us as a country? Why are we so distrustful? Okay. So anything else that you'd like to add? Parang what can you say about the association between social class and trust in the Philippines? So again, here we're talking about how social class shapes the trust orientation. What can you say, if you put them together, parang what conjectures do you have? No? Or how will you describe these results? Okay.
Sir, based on the results, we can interpret it broadly na kahit na tumaas or bumaba yung social class, it does not predict the change in trust orientation.
Right. So, posibleng ang hirap to be conclusive about trust orientations and social class based on the data, no? Yung sinasabi ni Adi ay at least dun sa direction medyo consistent naman, no, with what the data is saying kahit papaano, no. However, yun nga, wala tayo kasing masabi kasi there's nothing the magnitudes are so small, ganyan. So, baka yung direction is also just a function of the size, etc. No? So, ang hirap to... Yes, okay. So, yun yung sinasabi ni Mika na mahirap, parang hindi enough yung data to conclude or say anything. Which I find, I don't know... sorry. Who wanted to say something?
I'm so sorry,
Adi?
sir. I have
Adi?
problematic mic. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes po. Actually po, yung isang question ko, from the start pa, from the trust, generalized and relational trust, since we're talking stat, I wondered kung ano yung um, percentage of the variance shared by social class in determining one's trust tendencies. Kasi parang, siguro isa yun sa mga source of my doubt, na na baka hindi main predictor ng iyong trust tendency kung more generalized or more relational yung iyong social class. So, I'm wondering, kasi there have to be other variables na magpe-play din ng factor kung paano ka magta-trust sa ibang tao regardless of the social class. So, significant po kaya yung percentage ng variance na shared ng social class in determining yung trust. Not just for for the Philippine sample data, but also for the other studies discussed in the article.
Right. Thank you for bringing that up, Adi. At least what we're seeing here in this correlation, kasi interpretation naman ng variance shared pwedeng, kunwari, R squared, diba? So, these are the R, yung manikita natin dito sa Pearson correlation, ito na yung R. So, ang liit na niya, 0.04 na. Yung R squared, kung sa square mo pa to, mas lalo siyang liliit. No? So, at least in the Philippines, what we're saying is, possibly, in this data set, there's no... walang nako-contribute yung social class sa pagpapaliwanag. At least yung measure ng social class as yung ladder, wala siya nako-contribute sa explanation ng trust. Sa other countries, that would be a good question also. But what Fisk and others are saying is that parang meron. Yun yung kanilang conclusion. Mukhang merong role yung social class sa pag-shape ng trust orientations. So yung sabi ni Jenalyn, maybe other societal circumstances beyond affecting trust are also at play. Yeah, so I don't know, Jenalyn, would you like to expound on this? Ano kaya itong mga other societal circumstances or contexts na ito?
Sir, naisip ko lang, paano kaya kung magkaiba rin yung pwedeng maging results kapag halimbawa, first world country or third world country. So parang magkaiba kasi ng context ng mga circumstances ng mga tao na nandoon.
Right. That's a good. And I think that also into factors that we look into. At yung isa, yung aking hina, and I may be wrong, pero yung isang hinala ko ay it has something to do with relation, value natin sa relationships, value natin sa interdependence, and all these things. Baka that might have an effect on... Parang baka when people are more relational, there's a high compared to, when you're more individualistic. Yeah. So that could be one. Kasi sabi nga nila kapag mas relational yung value ng isang bansa, mas madali tayong ma-cue sa warmth perceptions. Parang mas pinapahalagahan natin yung warmth more than competence. No? So, kaya kung masyado tayong sensitized sa warmth, baka mataas din yung bar that we kind of put into who counts as trustworthy or friendly or people that we like. I don't know, that might be something. Yeah. So I guess yun din yung binabagit ni Vili, whether collectivist or individualistic, colonized or not colonized. So these are some factors that we can look into. Who are considered outsiders, who are considered insiders. So these are, for me, I wanted to show you this, just to see the possibilities that we can do with our research. Now, if you want to extend this research further, ito yung isa na pwede nating i-develop. Na meron ba talagang, kasi ang lakas ng argument, pinag-uusapan natin from the very beginning, social class shapes who you are. Pero ano yun? Ano yung sineshape ng social class na consistent or hindi consistent sa mga nabasa natin so far? Kasi parang feeling ko pwede nating i-argue talaga na may effect yung social class. Parang hindi natin siya pwedeng edmahin na sabihin natin, hindi, wala namang effect yun. I'd like to believe meron eh. Pero ano yung mga outcomes na dapat nating tinitignan para makita natin yung power ng social class. No? Okay. Sige. So, last data set. So, now, let's talk about perceptions. Okay? So, this is one of the experiments that we did. And then, so kung makikita natin dito, so ano yung mapapansin nyo dito? Ang sinasabi ng data, ang sinasabi ng stereotype content model, yung mga lower class targets, relatively, dapat mas mataas yung competence ng higher class kaysa sa lower class. Pero dito, lumalabas, at least sa mean, mas mataas pa rin yung perceived competence ng lower sa higher class. Okay? Ito medyo consistent na colder yung tingin sa higher class kaysa sa lower class. Okay? Pero what do you think is going on here? Bakit yung competence, bakit mas competent yung lower class kaysa sa higher class kahit na sinasabi ng stereotype content model? Yung rank should predict competence. So higher class should predict higher competence. So, tingin nyo bakit kaya?
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, nasabi din natin sa readings that motivation is important in perception, or the perceived motivation is important in the perception. Mapapansin natin sa character A, specifically on G, the last part, versus the other one, G ng character B. The other one is more familiar, more communal, and the other one is individualistic goal. So the perceived motivation of helping actually leads to warmth, and that warmth tend to have a positive interpersonal judgment by yung perceiver. So tumataas din yung ratings of perceived competence.
Right. Yun din yung isang interpretation namin dito sa results. Kasi parang itong manipulation na to, this was based on prior research. So ganito nila, similar yung ginamit nilang profiles. Siyempre, iniba ko lang yung neighborhood, etc., no, yung trabaho. Pero kasi kung titignan mo yung G, it would kind of skew your perception of these characters. No, yung isa kasi nga parang siya magtatrabaho para tulungan yung pamilya, yung isa parang magbabiyahe. Parang, di ba, if you're going to perceive competence in that regard, baka i-shape nung G description yung rating mo doon. Okay? So which is why is this important for me, no? Kasi kung titignan mo siya, sabihin, kahit na lower class yung target mo, pwedeng relatively positive pa rin yung tingin mo sa kanya. Diba? Posibleng mataas pa rin yung tingin mo sa kanya in terms of warmth and competence. And therefore, kung mataas yung liking, mataas yung respect, susunod doon yung positive emotions at saka positive behavioral outcomes. So, ito yung isa sa mga aspekto na kailangan nating pag-isipan at pagtuunan ng pansin. Parang, how do we create a society wherein, although there are differences in social class, the other is still perceived as warm and competent, and therefore, we can work together. Kasi pag mataas yung warmth mo sa kanya, pagkakatiwalaan mo siya, mag-interact ka di ba? Tapos kapag competent din, respetuhin mo rin siya, hindi mo siya i-denigrate or i-marginalize. So, how do we, so I think yung tinatanong ko dito ay ano yung mga kailangan nating magawa para gumanda yung stereotype natin of people who are different from us. And consequently, then we can work together to reduce inequality. Anything else that you'd like to add about this result? Any other insights or thoughts? Sir, were the results similar even when the items were rearranged? Sorry, what does that mean? What
Sir,
items were rearranged? Yeah.
naisip ko po kasi parang, okay, pag titingnan yung characteristics, for example, ni character B, okay, Ayala, okay, UANP, and then sa huli, you would compare someone who wants to get a job to help his mother out and someone who plans to travel to Europe. Iniisip ko po kung ma-rearrange yung items na mauuna kunyari yung um, help mother out. Kasi parang yung sa character B, parang nagde-decline yung warmth ko sa kanya. Parang
Kay
ganun.
Vivian,
So, parang baka po yung arrangement or yung pagkaka mold nung iyong uh,
yung vignette.
attitude or opo.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good point. I'm not sure pwede to i-replicate and then i-baguhin ng kaunti, i-refine yung vignette. Pwede ring i-drop yung G, no? And then let's see if we kind of switch things up a bit. Ano yung mangyayari, no? Pero siguro yung magandang tanong din doon, bakit nung nakita mo si B parang bumababa yung warmth sa kanya, di ba? So what is it about the profile that if we move it a bit, magbabago yung tingin sa kanya? Yeah. Okay. So yung point ni Adi at ni Riza about the context of writing the stereotype, okay. Sabi ni Mika, baka dyan pumapasok yung perceived motivation. Yes. Yes. Right. Okay. So, kaya I also directed you to that part of the reading para kasi baka potential explanation dun sa to what is going on. Si Jenna mentions ang batay natin ng competence. This is an excellent point, Jenalyn, kasi yung in our research, inadopt lang namin inadopt namin wholesale yung measures na ginamit nila FISC for warmth and competence, no? So, in fact, that would be an exciting research venture to look into dimensions of warmth and competence in the Philippines. May mga early research on warmth and competence na yan yung ginagawa nila eh. So, parang ina-assume nila na hindi necessarily friendliness or trustworthiness lang yung warmth, may iba pa, or yung sa competence, diba? Hindi lang siya necessarily skill or ability or whatever, no? Baka maganda kung mas descriptive yung words that we use. Riza, yung respondents are not diverse. They are university students. Hindi ko maalala kung saan. Yung sample namin dito ay from different UP, from UP Baguio, LB, and Manila, I think. Okay. Sige. So if there are no other points about this, no? So ito, I just like you to reflect on this. Baka hindi natin siya ma-discuss tonight, but if you're going to, and baka ito pwede ito mapunta dun sa pair. I think may pair ata na assigned for this particular paper. So baka you can think of ways of studying cross-class trust in a cross-class context, no? Ano yung mga research problems that you can think of? What methods can we employ? And how can the study that you're proposing, how can that contribute to reducing inequality? Yeah, oo. Actually, alam mo, Rice, thank you for bringing that up kasi sinamit din namin to sa isang journal, no? At isa yan sa mga major comments na parang you might want to test your hypothesis and your study with a different sample. Gusto niyo ba gawin natin? May energy ba kayo na gawin siya this time? Kasi pwede naman if you'd like to help out and like do an online survey tas ang participants natin ay adults, hindi university students. And then we kind of, try to spread the social class a bit. Let me know if you're interested. This is so easy to whip up kasi I have the measures, no? Yeah, kailangan lang magtulong sa pag-gather ng data. What is what is a smiley face? What is an emoticon? Is it? Are you interested? Is that a sign of interest? Okay. Ang hirap sa online learning kasi hindi ko sure what what emoticons mean. Okay. Sige. Okay. If you're interested, I can seriously think about this, and then I can, we can do something before the sem ends. Okay? Sige. So, yeah. Okay. Same. Pareho tayo. Gusto ko talaga malaman ano yung effect ng social class. Paano tayo nag-iiba-iba. And it's, sa context natin, ang ripe ng mga, kahit nga hindi pa muna tayo mag-cross-class context, kahit na yung profiles pa lang, and how that shape outcomes, sobrang crucial at importante. Kasi wala pang gumagawa. Okay. Sige. Sige, Riza and Billy, thank you for that. And I'm assuming si Nick then. So, sige, let me see what we can do this sem. Okay? Siguro before we, sorry, nag-overtime naman tayo, but are there any other questions that you'd like to raise with regard to the model or to the reading? I don't know if we were able to clarify some of your confusions tonight, but hopefully it kind of expanded what the reading was trying to tell us. No? Yung chapter kasi is intended for more diverse, popular audience. So, kaya less siya on, kaya marami siya mga kwento, ganyan. Less siya on the nitty-gritty of the theory. So, hopefully, at least medyo na-clarify yung stereotype content model. No? At saka yun na, it's actually talking about two different things that they tried to kind of combine in the end. No? So, they were talking about how social class shapes trust orientations. And in-argue naman yan ni Krauss ever since. And then they also talk about second part. So yun yung first part, yung second part, no, na ang tingin ko kasi dalawa, yung social class ng perceiver or ng actor, tsaka social class ng interaction partner. So yung first part talks about social class of the perceiver or the actor. How social class shapes the trust orientation. Yung second part talks about how the social class of the interaction partner affects how that person is perceived. Okay? So, kaya, yun. And then finally, what I wanted you to reflect on dun sa study guide natin talaga is to see how we can make sense of what Fisk are saying in the Philippines. Okay. So, sabi ni Riza, has this been explored in children? Yeah, actually, Riza, napaka-importante nung perspektiba na pinanggagalingan mo. I think nabanggit mo rin to sa reading na mo. Not that I'm aware of. I don't know if it has been explored in children. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, ang ganda talagang question nung sobrang pwede rin the thesis, to be honest, no, how, and I can probably share with you one reading related to this that they did in the US about how stereotypes about social class are formed early on. That kids can differentiate, that kids have a vocabulary, no? Yeah. So yeah. We also have to understand that kids, they run around in the same circle, di ba? So, sa neighborhood, sa school, kung hindi diverse yung mga nakakasalamuhan ng mga bata, it has a huge impact on how they perceive groups in the world. So, yeah. Sige, let me know how else I can help you with your research interests. No? Meron ako mga ilan ng mga ina-advise ngayon sa grad school na social class yung research nila. So, yun. Anything else that you'd like to ask or add about this?
Sir, siguro brief question lang on,
Yes.
kasi ako nahihirapan akong imagine how can this study um, tackle or curb social inequality in general. Sa Getting Beyond Social Class Stereotype ni Nates, nag-present naman sila ng dalawa. First is the cooperation, and the second one is on others' motivation or providing information regarding motivations of others. These are interesting abstract points, but how can we really do them in practice? I think doon ako nahihirapan na part, specifically because these are unconscious or, well, mostly unconscious processes.
Right, oo. So, maganda yung point ni Adi. I think yun din yung isa sa mga ina-argue nila Fisk, yung that we have to encourage more cross-class interactions to minimize the prejudice and to also broaden, kumbaga parang papalawakin natin yung stereotypes natin about groups, no? Uh, more than, kasi ang nangyari kapag hindi tayo nag-interact, merong ibang pinanggagalingan yung stereotype natin sa mga tao. So, media representations, yung few cross-class interactions natin that were possibly not positive, no? Wala pa akong definitive sagot ngayon about how we can do it in practice. Pero that was also one of the line of questions that I was trying to pursue, no, when I was doing my my dissertation. Parang so far ang kailangan nating ma-establish ay kung totoo kaya na yung if we perceive halimbawa lower class individuals as warm and competent, will that increase the kinds of help that we're going to accord them? You know, yung types of help ba na ibibigay natin sa kanila ay mas empowering. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Before to add lang, kasi I've been reading a lot about these cross-class interactions, even from the last reading. How should we facilitate these cross-class interactions, given that beliefs are somewhat pervasive? They grow their own legs, and they could actually defend themselves. And when they became pervasive, these beliefs, this stereotype became pervasive, how could we facilitate people, even in cross-class interaction, not to strengthen the belief, because they might confirm. That was one of the fear that I am looking when there's an increase in cross-class interactions.
Yeah, that's a very valid point.
Yeah.
Before I get, sorry, are you going to directly?
Hello?
Are you going to respond to what Billy said?
Ay, yes po. Na-stimulate ako ng kanyang question.
Okay, go.
Ay, ano po, naisip ko po kasi, yung iniisip, first, dun sa una niyang question, yung paano mai-a-apply itong models na to. If I may share yung sa aking reading memo na yung pinaka-key takeaway ko kasi, yung talagang pinropose nila na cross-class interaction na yung mas makakatulong para mag-reduce ng inequality. Kasi dun sa isang part, parang sinabi nila na yung dalawang ways, yung makapag-facilitate or makapag-foster ng cooperation, competition, interdependence. And yung isa, yung increasing awareness about other people's or other classes' motivations. Parang yung dalawang bagay na yun, may capacity na makapag-override nung stereotypes or nung class-based defaults. So parang, and yung dalawang yun, maaaring ma-achieve through cross-class interaction. Tapos, when it comes din dun sa trust na model na concept, yung cross-class interaction din, parang if there is more of it, for the lower class, mas maaari or mas maa-allow sila na ma-include yung other classes sa kanilang circle, kumbaga sa kanilang insider circle. And for the higher classes naman, instead of ignoring the lower classes, if there is interaction, maaari nilang ma-include yung lower classes dun sa scope ng kanilang generalized trust. Tas kung paano, well, in theory, pero paano natin ma-apply, mas mas interested talaga ako dun sa mga application na part. Pero naisip ko lang, yung sa previous readings, yung sa structural conditions, if siguro makakatulong yung mga structural conditions, yung mga institutions in order to pave more ways for interactions, cross-cultural interactions like this. Like maybe opening good institutions maybe for learning, na open siya for all classes, mga ganun. So, mas ma-facilitate yung interactions ng different classes. So, yun, mga ganun.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up, Adi. I love your questions. They are excellent. And kahit ako, ang agenda ko rin ay how can we apply these things. No? So, kaya kung mapapansin niyo dito sa klase natin, ang isang goal so far talaga is to bring up as many propositions as possible that we can work with. No? Kasi these are excellent empirical questions and critical questions. Kung halimbawa, talaga bang nag-work? No? Hindi ko rin sure if it will work. No? Yung isang major assumption ng social psychology is that stereotypes can change. No, they are very powerful, they are very ingrained, they are automatic, but there is a possibility of kung hindi mo man mabago completely pero ma-expand, kung hindi mo siya ma-flip na from negative to positive, at least dumadami yung positive stereotypes mo of particular people. Parang that's something that is hopeful, I think, about social class research. I'll just add very quickly yung important role ng gateway contexts. No? Nung universities, for instance, marami silang mga interventions na ginagawa sa university. Yung isang variable na tinitignan nila, I hope I'm not going off tangent, ay perception of rejection. Parang meron silang ganung mini-measure na yung mga part ng mga minority groups, lower social class individuals, etc., when they enter a university, tinitignan nila, mataas ba yung feelings nila that they will be rejected because of their minority status. No? And then they do interventions later on and see whether that feeling can be reduced. No? So yun. So wala akong anything concrete to say except that this is something that we can try and explore in the university. Halimbawa, in UP or in your particular, kahit nga in your workplace, to kind of do a particular ano lang parang class consciousness at kahit ganun ka basic, no? If you watch how people talk about particular social groups, magkaka-idea ka na how people think about these groups, no? Yung isang intervention na ginagawa nila, at the very least, just to talk about it, to have workshops and seminars on these things, no? Or to put particular faces on people who are different from us, no? Or to increase representations. Watch YouTube videos, halimbawa, about poor people doing good things, etc. Parang ang hypothesis nila, it can shift particular attitudes. No? So there. Yeah, yung humanizing, putting faces. Yes, exactly, Adi. Thank you. To our last point na before I kind of have meron lang akong announcement before I let you go. So sabi ni Riza, I was thinking to what extent does cross-class interactions really create change? Yeah. Immersion programs. So I guess publics are readings. Okay. True. Yung immersion, yun nga, I think immersions in general, cross-class interactions, when done right, might create an effect. Because I think the way that immersions and all these cross-class interactions are structured in the university, napaka-artificial. Hindi sila, yung perspective na pinanggagalingan ay pity. Halimbawa, hindi. So, kasi yun yung effect niyan eh. Kung pupunta ka doon dahil naawa ka, yung actions na gagawin mo will be born out of pity and therefore not long-term empowering solutions. No? So, yeah. Yeah, this is something that we have to really look into. Mm-mm. Right. I do agree sa sabi ni Adi na they might reinforce yung differences. Tapos kasi minsan nakikita mo sa reflection ng ibang students na Yeah, hindi yung change na nararamdaman, yung change, sorry ulit, makikita mo sa reflection ng ibang students dito sa mga immersions na to na walang awareness about their role or their privilege in maintaining the status quo. So, kailangan sila yung i-target talaga eh. Kailangan i-increase mo yung, hindi lang awareness, pero yung empathy, at saka na makita nila yung role ng mga nasa upper class for change. Kasi isang sad na research nakita nila ay upper class individuals have a lower tendency to endorse wealth redistribution. So, I mean, diba? Parang sila yung may hawak ng wealth. So, kung ayaw nila yung i-share, walang mangyayari kahit na ilang beses tayo mag-cross-class. So, may ganong intervention din na kailangan gawin sa mga people in power or maintaining the status quo. Tapos gugulo pa to lalo pag pinag-usapan natin yung social mobility na susunod nating topic. So, kasi yung mobility din, it changes you when you move up or down the ladder. And the tendency usually is to reinforce the status quo more than change it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting myself. But yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Really. So yeah, I'm so sorry that this extended so much, more than I anticipated. But thank you so much for your questions and, of course, your insights about the reading. So just quick announcement. So first, next week will be the submission of your critical essay. So let me know if you have questions or clarifications about that. I think binago ko na yung deadline on na Sunday na siya next week. And then, banggitin ko lang na yung admin, nagbaba sila ng memo na meron daw system-wide mid-semester break 2 to 6, no? Tapos yung kanilang inakalagay dun sa memo ay we are enjoined to not have any class or whatever for that matter, any requirements. So, okay lang ba? Kasi kung titignan niyo yung ating course guide, after our first after our critical essay next week, ay magkakaroon tayo ng parang some sort of break. No? So, okay lang ba kung... Let me just pull up the schedule. Sorry, wait lang Okay. So, para makita nyo lang din yung schedule natin. Yan. Okay, wait. Actually, naglagay na naman tayo ng... Ito ba yan? Okay. Sige, wait lang Okay. So week 7, that's next week, submission ng critical essay. So dapat sa week 8, merong ganitong chika. So okay lang ba kung i-move natin yung week 9 dito? So after your essay, let's talk about social mobility. Tapos nung week na to, yung November 5, walang anything. Is that okay? Okay. Sige. So yun lang naman. Tapos gusto ko lang din tanungin kung okay ba sa inyo to meet dito sa week 8? Kasi I'm just anticipating na sa critical essay, posible na, you might still need more time or hindi siya umabot sa deadline, so baka kailangan nyo mag-extend, etc. Anyway, so iniisip ko kung preferred nyo ba yung nag-meet or papagawa lang ako ng homework. So, sorry, ulitin ko. So yung question ko ay, the week after the critical essay submission, okay pa rin ba sa inyo to do a synchronous session like this? Or, sige. Sige. Okay. Okay, sige. Thank you. So, hindi ko na lang ipapagawa yung aking balak ipagawa. So, interesting kasi yung gagawin lang natin ay Halloween party. So, ang sabihin ko na lang din na yung activity niyo actually for social mobility, meron lang akong i-upload na children's book. So, I will just ask you to read that before coming to the synchronous session 2 weeks from now. And then, pag-usapan natin yung guide questions related to that children's book on social class. Okay? So, ulitin ko lang yung schedule natin, schedule-wise, mag-move up. So, next week will be the submission of critical essay hanggang Sunday. And then the week after that, on October 29, we will talk about social mobility. And then, dito sa week ng November 5, wala tayong klase. At wala rin kayong homework or whatever. And then, susunod pa rin tayo dun sa schedule ng from weeks 10 to 13. Okay? Any other questions about our schedule? Okay, thank you so much for being so patient and understanding. We always take a long time during our synchronous sessions. I'm so sorry if we take up so much of your time and bandwidth. But I hope that it's helping you appreciate the reading more as opposed sa kung hindi tayo nakakapag-usap ng ganito. Okay? Sige. So I will see you class time tayo. Okay. Sige. Thank you, Fatima. I'll see you all on October 29. Okay? For our social mobility topic. Good luck sa inyong critical essay. Just send me an email if there's anything else that, if there are confusions or questions or difficulties about it. Okay? Sige. Good luck, everybody. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye. Alendas na. See you. Bye-bye.